You're winding down, maybe lying flat, maybe curled up on your side. The room's quiet, your body's heavy. Maybe you've already yawned once. Before we start, take a second to like, subscribe, and tell me in the comments, where are you watching from and what time is it there? Now imagine sleep with no clocks, no schedules, no glowing screens, no phones buzzing at midnight, no alarms at 6. Just exhaustion, wood smoke, cold stone, and a pile of straw. Tonight, we're going back. Not to royalty, not to war, not to fire, but to... Because, as strange as it sounds, medieval peasants, the poorest people in Europe, may have had the best sleep in human history. You don't know what time it is. No one does. Not exactly. There's no bell tower here. No town clock. No rooster that crows on cue. Just the darkness and the fire nearly out. The orange light it throws across the cottage walls is soft and low, the kind of light that pulls your eyelids downward. Your arms are sore. So are your legs. So is your back. You feel it in places you forgot you had. Not the ache of laziness, the burn of having worked from before dawn to after dusk. No breaks, no bargaining, just motion, just labor. Your hands are caked with a day's worth of earth, not just dirt, real living soil. You turn hay, you lift buckets, you knead rye dough thick enough to break your wrists. You haul piss pots out into the cold and dump them near the compost. You haven't bathed today or yesterday or likely the day before. But that doesn't stop you from curling up beside your brothers, your sisters, your mother, your father, your uncle's wife. Everyone sleeps together here. One room, one hearth, a single giant pile of limbs and breath and straw. The bedding isn't soft, but it is warm. Straw has been changed recently. You can still smell it underneath blankets thick with oil and soot, heavy wool, stiff linen, hand-stitched repairs made over 5 winters. You press your face into it and feel the sleep come on fast. Not like now. Not anxious. Not distracted. Not waiting for a phone to buzz, or a dog to bark, or a neighbor to slam the door. Just stillness. Just the kind of fatigue that makes your bones beg for silence. This is first sleep. You don't know the term. It doesn't need a name. But centuries from now, scientists will study it. Call it segmented sleep. Say it's more natural, more healing, more in tune with the body's rhythms. But you just call it sleeping. You'll be up in a few hours, briefly. Maybe to stoke the fire, maybe to pray, maybe just to sit in the dark and whisper with your sister about what the stars looked like tonight. Then you'll drift into second sleep, and it will be deeper than anything most modern people ever feel. No blue light, no buzzing, no late-night news, no fear of oversleeping, just the rise and fall of breathing bodies, just the slow crackle of fire, just a sleep earned through effort and untouched by interruption. It's not silence that makes the sleep so deep, it's rhythm. A rhythm older than bells, older than bedtime stories, older than beds. Your life is ruled by the sun and your stomach, and you wake when the sky is red, work until your arms tremble, and sleep. Not because it's time, but because it's all your body can do. There's no fight left in it, no late-night thoughts, no endless scrolling, no playlist humming from a screen on your wall. The world ends when the fire dims. The room goes dark, and your mind follows. Your room, if you can call it that, is just one part of a single-room cottage. Everything happens here. Birth, death, eating, mending, bleeding, and sleep. The hearth is at the center. A few feet away, the shared bed, or sometimes just a raised platform layered in straw, cloth, wool, and whoever's too tired to move. Children are sprawled beside elders. Your cousin is curled around the dog. Someone snores. Someone whimpers in a dream. No one stirs, because the rhythm here isn't just in time, it's in bodies. You sleep with others, not by choice, but by necessity. Blankets are rare, heat is precious. A single candle costs more than a day's cheese. So you press in tight, you share your breath. You learn to fall asleep to the sounds of others, feet twitching, mouths puffin', someone grinding their teeth. And in a strange way, it's comforting. The warmth, the closeness, the shared silence. You don't feel alone here, not in the way people in the future will. Not in the way someone lies awake in a silent apartment staring at a phone, heart racing with invisible fear. Here, fear sleeps too. When you wake, if you wake, sometime between first and second sleep. It's gentle, natural. The room is dark, but not black. Moonlight leaks through the cracks. The fire is low, but still glows. You sit up, stretch, scratch at your arm. Maybe you urinate into the chamber pot. Maybe you whisper to your brother. Maybe you just stare into the coals and think about nothing. This is your pause, a kind of intermission built into the night. Future people will study it, confused, ask why people got up in the middle of the night. But for you, it just feels right. Sometimes you pray. It's what many do in the middle of the night. Quiet, slow words, not just to God, but to the saints, to the ancestors, to Mary, to whatever you believe might be listening in the dark. You pray for the harvest, for your sister's leg to heal, for the merchant's son to stop coughing blood, for a gentler winter. Sometimes you just sit there, no words, no asking, just breathing, letting your body cool, letting the outside world settle before slipping back into dream. And then it comes, second sleep, deeper than the first. You lie back down without thinking. You don't toss, you don't reposition, you just fold into it, like sinking into warm earth. Your limbs are already waiting, your mind already surrendered. And for the rest of the night, you are nowhere. No dreams, no clocks, no light. Just the full weight of rest, earned through toil, wrapped in breath and fire and silence. There's no concept of sleep hygiene, no bedtime tea, no apps telling you when to wind down. And yet, your sleep is cleaner than theirs, not by design, by deprivation. There is no overstimulation here, no flickering blue light robbing your melatonin, no caffeine-laced drinks keeping your pulse one notch too high. Just the steady dimming of the world as the sun slips behind the hills. It gets darker, colder, quieter, and you follow it. Because your body isn't being forced to resist the night. It's allowed to fall with it. Your days are brutal, but your rhythm is perfect. You wake before light, tend to animals, haul water, knead dough, spin wool, thresh grain, harvest beets, until your fingers crack. Every motion has weight, purpose, consequence. If you do not work, you do not eat. If you do not eat, you do not live. That urgency makes your body efficient. It spends nothing it doesn't have to. And when the sun sets, and the chores are done, and the bread is cooling near the fire, your body doesn't hesitate. It begs for rest. You rarely lie awake thinking about the future, not because you're unbothered, but because the future isn't yours. You don't control land. You don't own time. You work when told, sleep when done. And though that may sound cruel, it's clear. There's no second guessing, no decision fatigue, no wondering if you should have replied to that message or said that thing at dinner. There was no dinner party, no meeting, no inbox. You had turnips and prayer and heat, and now you have sleep. Your bed isn't a mattress. It's a collection of things: straw, moss, a mat if you're lucky, a wooden frame if your family's better off than most. The straw smells earthy. sometimes a little sour. Mice nest in it during the colder months. Fleas are common, but you've stopped noticing. That's just life. The body adapts, even in discomfort. And here's the secret no one expects. Even among the bites, the chill, the creaking joints, your sleep still comes faster than theirs, because your exhaustion is real, and real exhaustion is the oldest sedative on Earth. Dreams come in flashes, not long narratives, just sensations. Bread baking, firelight, the river in summer, a dog barking in the distance. Occasionally, a fear slips in. Famine, wolves, plague, but not often. Your sleep is mostly quiet, mostly black, like sinking into the belly of the earth and forgetting you have a name. You don't wake thinking about resolutions or productivity hacks. You wake because a rooster crowed, or your father rose to piss, or the fire sputtered out and the cold touched your face. And even then, you don't rise fast. Not yet. You stay there, curled beside your kin, breathing in rhythm, eyes half shut. You feel the first light touch your skin like a second blanket. The day will come, full of toil and ache and hunger. But for now, you have one more breath, one more still moment, one more stretch of perfect peasant sleep. You weren't raised to expect comfort. That's not the world you were born into. Comfort is for landowners, nobles, priests. You and everyone you know were born into labor, born into obligation. Your father taught you to bow your head before the Lord, but he also taught you to watch the grain like your life depended on it, because it did. You learned early that the best reward for a hard day wasn't gold or glory or leisure. It was sleep, that simple, sacred thing at the end of every brutal day. It became the closest thing to heaven you could touch. But here's what no one realizes. That simplicity shaped the way you slept, because your body was never at war with your environment. There was no midnight stimulation, no news cycle, no urgent tasks piling up in a digital cloud. If something needed doing, you did it. And if it didn't, it could wait. The land didn't care about your anxiety. The animals didn't run on guilt. You followed the rhythm of your world because it was the only rhythm that existed. And that meant, at night, when there was nothing more to do, you stopped. And stopping meant resting, not fighting your own mind. Your cottage didn't have curtains or privacy or insulation. It had a single hearth and a door that creaked. But even in that, especially in that, your sleep was deep. Your ears learned to filter sound differently. The snap of wood in the fire, safe. The wind against the walls, familiar. A cough, expected. Your brain, unbothered by the kind of artificial stimuli that modern people swallow daily, could tell the difference between threat and noise. You weren't hypersensitive to every creak and whisper. You lived inside the creak and whisper. Your nervous system didn't overreact. It just listened, then let go. And you weren't alone. That mattered. You slept surrounded by breath. People you trusted, or at least tolerated, were there in the dark beside you. You didn't think of it as support. You thought of it as life. But it meant something. You didn't lie awake wondering if someone would come through your door in the night, if someone forgot to lock the digital world out of your room. There were no alerts, no sudden messages, no sense of being hunted by your own mind. If someone entered your home at night, it was a wolf or a thief. And that fear was sharp, clear, rare, unlike the constant background buzz of future people's sleepless dread. You used your body all day. You used your muscles. You climbed ladders. You lifted buckets. You carried hay bales. You walked barefoot over sharp stones. You wrung wet cloth with hands that already bled from rope work. You didn't exercise because your life was exercise. And that physical output created a chemical silence inside your mind. You didn't need guided meditation. Your body, broken down by honest work, released its own tranquilizers, endorphins, exhaustion, the kind of biological stillness that no breathing app can simulate. The fire was your last conversation, not a phone, not a screen, just flame, cracking, popping, whispering stories into the night. You'd sit there, maybe with your chin in your hands, watching the last wood turn to ash. That was the last light, the last sound, the cue that it was time. Not because a device told you, not because you felt guilt for being awake, but because the world had finished its day and you were part of it. You were not separate from the dark. You were not isolated from the night. You were swallowed by it, like every living thing around you, and rocked to sleep on the breath of fire and stone. You didn't need silence to fall asleep. Silence, real silence, was rare. The walls of your cottage creaked, the wind pushed against timber. Dogs barked. Someone muttered in their dreams. The thatch above your head sometimes rustled with mice. But none of it stopped you. These were living sounds, familiar sounds. You didn't lie awake waiting for stillness because you never expected it. Modern sleepers chase silence like it's a cure. But you accepted the night as it was, with all its breath and motion. And so your body responded in kind. It slept anyway, deeply, without condition. The food you ate shaped your sleep, too. You didn't gorge before bed. You didn't snack at midnight. Your last meal came hours before sleep. Bread, maybe on rare days, cheese or pottage. Nothing your stomach had to fight. No sugar spikes. No alcohol-induced wake cycles. No processed chemicals. Your body didn't toss or churn or sweat trying to figure out what you'd just given it. It settled slowly, efficiently. The hunger that woke you wasn't from imbalance, it was from routine. And so even hunger, in its quiet way, made sleep cleaner, sharper, real. There were no electric lights, no lanterns unless you were lucky, just candles. And candles were not casual. Each one mattered, made by hand, stored with care, lit only when truly needed. So night was dark, not romantically dark, not mood-lighting dark, but cave dark. A darkness that swallowed your body whole and left nothing but the rhythm of your breath. Your eyes adjusted. Your mind adjusted. You weren't afraid of the dark. It was your blanket. Your room didn't glow with notifications or LED dots. It wrapped you in the purest absence of light you will ever know. You weren't expected to rise at 5 a.m. and jog. You weren't pressured to optimize. No one tracked your sleep cycles or judged your REM phases. You didn't need to. You trusted your body. You woke when your body told you to, or when the animals did. The cows had a rhythm. The chickens had a rhythm. The sun had a rhythm. And you were not above those things. You were part of them. People think peasants were powerless. And yes, in many ways they were. But they were also free from a certain kind of mental violence. They didn't wake to urgency they couldn't see. They woke to light. There were sleep rituals, yes, but not like today. No lavender oil, no affirmations, no meditations. Your rituals were prayers, whispers, family murmurs, old songs. You might rub ointment on a burn or wrap your feet in cloth. You might shift the sleeping infant closer to the fire or spit in the straw to mark a blessing. These rituals weren't therapeutic. They were ancestral. Passed not to improve sleep, but to soften death, to fend off evil, to protect the dreamer from spirits that slipped through cracks in the walls. Whether or not they worked, they gave your sleep meaning. And maybe that's why it was so deep. Because your sleep meant something. It wasn't an escape. It wasn't a luxury. It was the earned end to a day lived fully. And you didn't take it for granted. You didn't push it back. You didn't sacrifice it to deadlines or devices. You lay down in the dark, surrounded by breathing, soothed by labor, untouched by artificial fear. You slept the sleep of the forgotten, and it was holy in its silence. The people around you shaped your sleep just as much as the fire or the straw. You knew their rhythms not just by sight, but by sound. The way your older brother grunted once, then again before rolling onto his side. The soft exhale of your sister when her mouth opened slightly in the cold. The sharp snore of your father that used to annoy you but now lets you know the night is calm, that danger hasn't come. You hear these sounds the way a captain hears wind. They're not distractions. They're orientation. They root you in your place, not just in the room, but in the world. And you weren't alone in thinking of sleep as sacred. The church had opinions on everything, and sleep was no exception. You were told to pray before sleep, not just to protect your soul, but to fend off demons, witches, even the devil himself, who was said to visit dreamers in the night. You believed, or half believed, or just did it because your mother did. But the prayer itself was grounding. It reminded you that there was a thin veil between sleep and death, that you might not wake. And so, when you closed your eyes, it wasn't taken lightly. It had weight, purpose, even peace. You never heard the term circadian rhythm, but your life followed it perfectly. The sun told you when to wake. The dark told you when to stop. And if you ignored that rhythm, you didn't get sick. You didn't get yelled at. You didn't get tired. You just didn't survive. You worked until you collapsed. And collapse in that world was sleep. Not rest, not leisure, just a full-body surrender. That surrender wasn't optional. It was biological, spiritual. You didn't schedule your nights. Your body did. Some nights were harder than others. When someone in the house was sick, or dying, or had already died. When the wolves came close. When the harvest failed and your stomach growled louder than your thoughts. But even then, sleep came. Because grief is a weight, and your body was already trained to lie beneath weight. You didn't toss and turn, replaying the day. You didn't scroll your mind through missed chances and imaginary futures. You mourned in your chest. You stared into the coals. And then, eventually, your body took over. It always did. Your dreams weren't safe havens. They were practical, sometimes prophetic, sometimes holy. The church taught you to fear certain dreams, the sinful ones. But you couldn't help what rose in sleep. Images of harvests, of fire, of faces you'd lost. You didn't dissect them. You didn't tweet about them. You woke, blinked slowly in the dark, and remembered only pieces. Then you moved on. Dream and waking life weren't split in two. They flowed into each other like mist across a field, just different shades of the same sleep-bound world. And through it all, the aches, the rituals, the prayer, the darkness, you slept fully, deeply. The kind of sleep that doesn't ask questions. The kind you wake from with straw in your hair and sweat on your skin, blinking into a dawn that doesn't judge you for how long you slept or how early you rose. Just a new day. Just another round of life. And you greet it not from a place of exhaustion, but from the quiet, ancient fullness that only a peasant's sleep could provide. There's no such thing as bedtime in your world, no set hour, no glowing numbers ticking toward guilt. The sun goes down, and the day decides when it ends. Some evenings stretch long, full bellies, old songs, someone telling a story beside the fire. Others end suddenly, with silence, with a chill, with the kind of tired that doesn't ask permission. You don't resist it, you don't analyze it. You let it come the way you let rain soak your cloak, unwelcome but honest. Children fall asleep first. They don't need to be told. Their bodies, shaped by hunger and cold and hard play, know the path. One moment they're nodding, the next they've disappeared into sleep with a sigh. The adults follow, not in unison. It's a gradual collapse. Someone unlaces their boots. Someone else pulls a blanket tight over their shoulders. You listen to these small sounds, the brush of wool against skin, the shift of a body turning toward the wall. No one says goodnight. They just fade. There's a beauty in that sleep as surrender, not a thing to master or measure, but a current to drift with. You don't worry if you'll fall asleep. You always do. The only question is when, and when it happens, it's like slipping into a familiar river, not a plunge, not a crash, just a slow descent into black. The kind of black that heals, the kind that empties your lungs and fills them again without effort. And when you wake hours later in the lull between first and second sleep, you almost forget you were ever awake at all. You sit up briefly. The room is dim. Embers glow. Your brother has rolled over, muttering nonsense. Someone else is awake, too. Your mother, maybe, stoking the fire, whispering prayers, cradling the baby. You share a glance in the dark. No words, just presence. You lie back down and feel the ache in your legs, the good kind, the earned kind. You listen to the silence, not for danger, but for rhythm. The creak of the wood, the breath of the fire, the sound of life still continuing in the dark. And then the second sleep takes you deeper, this time heavier. The fire grows dimmer, your limbs stiffer, but the stillness spreads over you like warm ash. You might dream, you might not. Either way, this sleep doesn't ask you to remember it. It only asks you to yield. And you do, without fear, without anticipation. Just the steady fall into the part of night that belongs only to your body. You disappear into it, not as an escape, but as return. When morning comes, there are no alarms, just the sound of life waking around you. The creak of a door, the first clang of metal, the lowing of cows. You open your eyes slowly. Your breath is warm against cold air. You feel the stiffness in your neck, your back, your hands, but also a strange kind of calm. You slept, not perfectly, not luxuriously, but truly, fully, honestly. Like everything else in your life, hard, simple, and completely real. You don't think about whether you slept well. That concept doesn't exist yet. Sleep isn't a product to be measured or optimized. It's survival. It's breath between days. You don't own it. You fall into it when allowed and crawl out when needed. But today, like most days, your body thanks you. It feels heavier, sure, but cleaner, emptier in a good way. No buzzing, no tightness in the chest, no regrets from the night before. Just rest. Just the memory of fire, the comfort of shared warmth, and the deep, unspoken knowledge that you've made it through another night. You rise slowly, not from urgency, but from rhythm. There is no alarm, no calendar, no snooze, just the soft pressure of cold morning air meeting your cheeks, your fingertips, the bridge of your nose. It's enough. Your breath clouds briefly as you sit up. All around you, others begin to stir, not with speed, but with instinct. A shuffle of wool, the grunt of a father stretching his arms, the creak of someone's back bent from a lifetime of carrying weight. No one speaks yet. The world hasn't earned words, not until the fire is fed. You step into your boots, still damp from the snow tracked in days ago. Your toes curl, reluctant but used to it. The floor beneath your feet is cold earth, uneven. It grounds you, reminds you where you are, who you are. You walk to the hearth, crouch low, and blow softly into the ashes. A tiny breath, a flicker, a pulse of orange. The fire returns, sleepy, stubborn like a god that demands respect. It will take time to wake, just like you. You add a splinter of wood, another. The warmth spreads slowly. This is morning. Outside, the sky begins to blush, a slow smear of gray, then pink. You squint through the cracks in the shutters. There's no sun yet, but you can feel it rising, not just on the horizon, but in your chest. You pull on a tunic that smells like smoke and old wool. Your shoulders ache, your neck pops, but you stand upright anyway. Others rise behind you. A cousin clutches a blanket, your brother scratches his ribs, someone's already yawning. And for a moment, the room feels like it's exhaling. All at once. Because what you had last night, and the night before, and the night before that, wasn't just sleep. It was a kind of return to the earth, to the rhythm, to the kind of exhaustion that asks nothing of you but surrender. There are no apps, no prescriptions, no self-help books in your world. But your rest is whole, absolute, uncompromised. You woke with your body aligned to the sun, your mind quiet, your muscles humming with memory. And for just a moment before the work begins, that is enough. The animals will need tending soon. Bread must be prepared, water hauled. But no one rushes. The day will be long. There's no advantage to hurrying through it. You let out what's left of the porridge from yesterday. Thick, gray, familiar. You sip it slowly, let it sit heavy in your belly. It tastes like ash and oats and something slightly sour, but it's enough. You eat not for pleasure, but for fuel. Your real hunger, you realize, is already satisfied, not by food, but by sleep. Some days you forget how important it is until it's taken. When illness comes to the cottage, everything shifts. Sleep no longer waits to be earned. It gets stolen in pieces, interrupted by coughs, fever, the clatter of a bowl being fetched in the dark. A child shivers in the night, eyes wide, burning. You wake again and again, each time not by choice, but by instinct. You wrap her in blankets, wet cloth, whisper half-remembered prayers. There is no medicine, only time, only breath. And sleep, that once sacred rhythm, becomes a negotiation with something older than fatigue. When the illness passes and the girl sleeps again without burning, you return to the full night. It feels different now, more sacred. You lie down and wait, but not long. Sleep finds you quickly, like a reward, like mercy, and it's heavier than before. Your breath deepens, you twitch once, then settle. The body, finally allowed to let go, collapses inward like a star. You do not dream, not of fire, not of children, not of what might come tomorrow. You sleep with the stillness of someone who has earned nothing and everything. Still, in the hours between tending and worrying, you rest, not fully, but enough. Enough to rise again. There's no luxury in breaking down. If the pigs aren't fed, they die. If the fire isn't stoked, the frost wins. You press straw around the sick child's feet. You boil water. You wrap your arms around her and drift into a kind of half-sleep, eyes closed, mind alert, every sound catalogued. But even this fractured rest is deeper than the anxious hours of future minds lit by electric ghosts. In spring, the nights shorten, the light lingers longer, and morning comes fast. But your rhythm adjusts. You lie down later, rise earlier, and still somehow the rest feels whole. It isn't about hours. You never count hours. You measure sleep by weight, by depth, by what you feel when you rise. Some nights are thin, quick. Others are long, endless like falling through soft dirt. Both are enough. Both get you to the next day. And in a world that forgets your name the moment you're gone, that's all you ever needed. One more day. And as the season turns again, from warmth back to wind, from bloom to decay, you realize your sleep is the one thing no lord, no tax, no priest has ever managed to take from you. They own your land. They command your back. But they do not own your silence in the dark. They cannot touch what you dream in that stillness. You are not a peasant. You are not a servant. You are not a body. You are just breath and warmth and memory wrapped in wool and ash and darkness. Sometimes in those quiet moments between first and second sleep, you remember old stories, tales told by firelight, the kind that feel closer to myth than history. You remember the one about the woman who slept so deeply that a demon entered her dreams, or the man who dreamed of fire before the village burned. You don't know if they're true, but you know how real dreams feel when you're breathing beside someone who mutters your name while asleep. Dreams were taken seriously here. Sleep was never just sleep, it was a doorway. You didn't sleep to recharge for performance. There were no metrics waiting in the morning, no productivity to track. You weren't optimizing for anything. You slept because the body demanded it, and the body always won. There was no badge for being tired, no glory in staying up late. The village didn't care if you worked through the night. No one celebrated your grind. In fact, if you worked past sundown, people worried. Something was wrong. Too much ambition was strange, suspect, a sign that you didn't know your place or didn't want to keep it there. There were times when you dreamed vividly, dreams of walking through empty fields under a sky with no moon, dreams of voices that spoke in tongues older than prayer. You didn't tell anyone, not because it was shameful, but because it was yours. In this world, everyone shares everything: bread, labor, space, even the same narrow straw bed. But dreams are private. They belong to you alone. They come without permission and leave no trace. And when you lie back down the next night, they return, not as escape, but as shadow, as memory folded inside rest. Some say sleep is where God speaks clearest. The local priest preaches this sometimes, not loudly, but enough that you've heard it. He tells stories of saints who received visions in sleep, messages, warnings. You've never seen a vision. But sometimes you wake with a feeling, a heaviness in your chest, a strange clarity in your eyes. And for the rest of the day, you feel like something's changed. You don't tell anyone. You don't have the words. But you start to believe that sleep isn't just a closing of the eyes. It's a doorway that opens inward. The bed you lie on is not really a bed. It's a shared space, a platform of hay and cloth surrounded by bodies that carry their own weight of days. Aunts, cousins, neighbors, sometimes strangers just for a night. You curl your limbs to fit between theirs, learn to breathe in rhythm with the group. At first, it's uncomfortable. You use space. But over time, you find comfort in it. The low hum of breath, the heat of others pressed close, the sound of someone whispering prayers into the dark just loud enough for no one to hear. You've heard stories about rich people sleeping alone in giant beds. They sleep on feathers, wrapped in furs, surrounded by silence. That seems odd to you, cold, even unnatural. Who would want to lie in a dark room with nothing but themselves? No voices, no shifting bodies, no familiar creaks or breathing to remind them they're still among the living? You wonder if that kind of sleep is deep. You wonder if it feels like yours. You doubt it. Because here, wrapped in smoke-stained cloth and stale straw, with your feet tangled in your brother's and the fire warming your cheeks, you fall into sleep that holds you like the earth. Not soft, not perfect, but full, complete, unshaped by ambition or comfort or illusion. Just rest, the oldest kind, the kind you earn with your hands and bury in your bones, the kind that doesn't just heal, it belongs to you. You don't think of sleep as a break, not a pause between productivity, not a reward. It's part of the rhythm, like breathing or bleeding. You wouldn't call it self-care, that word doesn't exist yet, but you understand its necessity better than any scholar ever could because you live close to the edge. Every hour of rest is an anchor against exhaustion that never truly leaves you. You don't sleep because it's healthy. You sleep because without it, everything else falls apart. Your harvest, your hands, your mind. When you were young, your mother sang low songs before bed. Not lullabies exactly, more like half-mumbled chants, rhythmic, repetitive. Sometimes they were about saints, sometimes about fields or wolves or the stars. She never explained them, just saying you didn't ask for meaning, you just listened. Those words sank into you like seeds, deep and unseen. Now, decades later, you find yourself humming them as you lie down, not for comfort, but from memory. The body remembers the sounds that carried it safely into sleep. During winter, the sleep feels different, heavier, longer. The nights stretch into each other, blurring first and second sleep into one long, soft descent. You eat less, you move less. Your body folds into the cold and finds shelter in the dark. Sometimes it's too cold to sleep well. Your toes numb, your breath hanging frozen in the air. But the exhaustion wins anyway. Even cold becomes background noise once your muscles surrender. The fire dies early. No one wakes to feed it. That's fine. The group body is warm enough. You wrap yourself in that warmth like another layer of skin. The strangest thing is how sleep teaches you about others. You learn things no conversation can reveal. You know your father's shoulders hurt by the way he winces when he rolls. You know your sister's nightmares are returning by the soft gasp she lets out in her second sleep. You know who snores, who sweats, who curls into themselves when sick. You learn their rhythms, their silences, their fragility, and they learn yours. Sleep becomes not just rest, but recognition, a kind of wordless communion repeated every night without fail. You've never once asked if you're sleeping enough. The question would seem strange. Enough for what? There is no enough in this world. You sleep until you're woken by light or sound or cold or need. Some nights that's 4 hours, some nights it's 10. There's no consistency, only reality. And reality is honest. Brutal, yes, but honest. You don't worry about tracking rest. You worry about making it through the day. And if you do, the sleep that follows is the only answer your body needs. And when it comes, when sleep returns again and again, night after night, even in hunger, even in pain, you receive it without resistance. You don't fight it. You don't question it. You lie down in the same place, under the same roof, beside the same people, and you let go. Not because life is kind, but because sleep is. It forgives everything the day does to you. It carries your weight so you can rise again. In your world, dreams aren't entertainment. They aren't symbols waiting to be decoded by professionals with books and soft voices. They're messages, warnings, sometimes divine, sometimes frightening, sometimes meaningless, but never ignored. If you dream of a bird flying backward, you tell someone. If you dream of teeth falling out, you make the sign of the cross. Dreams are stitched into your spiritual life, woven between folklore and fear. There are people in your village, old ones mostly, who can read them. You don't always believe what they say, but you, night after night, even in hunger, even in pain, you receive it without resistance. You don't fight it. You don't question it. You lie down in the same place, under the same roof, beside the same people, and you let go. Not because life is kind, but because sleep is. It forgives everything the day does to you. It carries your weight so you can rise again. In your world, dreams aren't entertainment. They aren't symbols waiting to be decoded by professionals with books and soft voices. They're messages, warnings, sometimes divine, sometimes frightening, sometimes meaningless, but never ignored. If you dream of a bird flying backward, you tell someone. If you dream of teeth falling out, you make the sign of the cross. Dreams are stitched into your spiritual life, woven between folklore and fear. There are people in your village, old ones mostly, who can read them. You don't always believe what they say, but you still listen. Because in the medieval night, when the line between body and spirit blurs, dreams are part of the air you breathe. You've heard stories of people who spoke to the dead in their sleep, not always family, sometimes strangers, sometimes saints. Once a man claimed he saw Saint Sebastian in a dream, his arrows glowing like torches. The priest told him to fast. Others whispered that he might be cursed. But you never laughed. You understood. You knew that sleep wasn't just biological. It was threshold. It was the place where what's real and what's not came to trade faces for a while. Still listen, because in the medieval night, when the line between body and spirit blurs, dreams are part of the air you breathe. You've heard stories of people who spoke to the dead in their sleep, not always family, sometimes strangers, sometimes saints. Once a man claimed he saw Saint Sebastian in a dream, his arrows glowing like torches. The priest told him to fast. Others whispered that he might be cursed. But you never laughed. You understood. You knew that sleep wasn't just biological, it was threshold. It was the place where what's real and what's not came to trade faces for a while. And in the dark, under straw and wool and breath, you never felt foolish for believing that something, someone, might be watching. And yet, even with the weight of spirits and stories, your sleep was not fearful. It was full, heavy, cleansing, not because it was uninterrupted, but because it was aligned. You didn't resist your body's needs. You didn't bargain with fatigue. When your body whispered, you obeyed. The only light came from fire or stars, the only sound from life. And when you woke up too early, there was no clock glaring down at you like an accusation. There was only darkness, silence, and the slow realization that nothing demanded you just yet. You turned over. You let yourself return. On feast days, your sleep was different. Your belly full, your limbs softer, the air heavy with meat and incense and mead. You'd sleep deeper, longer, waking thick-headed but content. On those nights the fire burned longer. Someone might still be humming when you slipped into dreams. You'd lie half-draped in warmth, smiling before your eyes even closed. There was laughter in the air, even in sleep, the kind that settled into your chest like a coal and stayed warm until morning. You remember those nights. You always will. On other nights, harder ones, sleep came as a shield. After a death, after a failed harvest, after a beating, it didn't matter how dark your thoughts became. Your body still demanded rest. Sleep took you whether you were ready or not as kindness, not as cruelty, but as law. The earth doesn't ask if you're prepared, it simply waits. So does sleep, and you learn to respect that, to lie down when nothing made sense and let the quiet come. Even broken, you slept. And now, years into this life, you've stopped asking what dreams mean. You've stopped naming sleep as anything but sacred. The fire may die, the bread may burn, the tax may rise. But every night, without fail, your body finds its way back to stillness, to a silence so old even your ancestors would call it holy. And when you sink into that dark once more, surrounded by warmth, by memory, by rhythm, you know it's the one part of life that still belongs entirely to you. There are nights when you lie down with no fire left, just embers faint and red in the black. The cottage is cold. You curl tighter under the weight of wool and body heat. The straw pokes at your back. Your legs ache. But still, you feel a calm settle over you, not because the day was easy, it wasn't, but because it ended. You survived it. And in this life, surviving is more than enough. The cold, the dark, the hunger, none of it matters once sleep comes, once your eyes close. Even the worst days become distant. The straw is still rough, but you're already sinking. You learned long ago not to fight tiredness. That was something only the young did, or the proud. You've watched men resist the pull of sleep, drink through it, talk over it, pretend it wasn't there. They always paid for it. The next day, slower hands, weaker grip, a dullness behind their eyes. You're not like them. You're not afraid of silence. You welcome it, and when it comes, you don't delay. You lie down, you settle, you breathe. And in that breath, the weight lifts, just a little, just enough to carry you into the next hour, the next dream. In your sleep, time folds. Minutes stretch like wool pulled too far. Hours pass in the blink of a thought. You wake sometimes with no memory of the night before, sometimes with dreams you can't place. Was it your childhood you walked through in the dream, or someone else's? You saw a field, a face, a flame, but it slipped away as soon as you opened your eyes. You don't chase it. That's not the way of things. What sleep gives, it gives freely, and what it takes back, it keeps. You accept it. That's part of the rhythm, too. You slept through storms, through floods that soaked the walls, through childbirth screams, through the creaking collapse of beams under too much snow. You once woke to a snake near your ankle, and still, after the panic, after the strike and kill and burial, you slept again. The body knows what it needs, and in this world, it needs sleep more than it needs safety. Rest doesn't wait for perfect conditions. It waits for nothing. You lie down, and your body says, "Now that's enough." Some nights your last thoughts are prayers, not always words, sometimes just shapes in your mind. A hand, a loaf, a flicker of firelight. You ask for protection, yes, but more than that, you ask to wake up. That's the real blessing. To lie down and rise again, to open your eyes and feel the dull hunger in your belly, the stiffness in your spine, and know you're still here. Not promised, not safe, but alive. Sleep is your way of resetting the story, starting again. That's the secret no one tells in the books. For all its brutality, for all its loss, medieval life gave you one pure thing: rest that was never sold to you. Sleep without performance, stillness without shame. You worked, you wept, you waited, and at the end of it, your body laid itself down like it knew something sacred. Because it did. Because it still does. You once asked your grandfather how he knew it was time to sleep. He didn't answer with words. He just looked out the window toward the woods, toward the sloping hills beyond the field, where the sun was dipping below the treetops. He said, "Because the land is quiet now." That stayed with you, not the sentence, but the feeling behind it. that sleep was not about hours or rules. It was about listening, to the chickens settling, to the pigs curling into each other, to the trees that no longer swayed. When the world quieted, so did you. You've never owned a pillow. What you have is a bundle of cloth stuffed with dried grass. It smells faintly of mold and soap and smoke. It's lumpy, but you've shaped it over time, flattened it just right beneath the base of your skull. It supports the ache in your neck, where years of lifting have carved something permanent into your bones. And when you press your head into it, your breath slows, not because it's soft, but because it's yours. Made by hands like yours, slept on by generations before you. A small, simple anchor in a world where little stays yours for long. There are moments just before sleep where your thoughts stretch thin, not like future minds racing, darting, spiraling. Yours slow into shadow. You think of the bread that burned this morning, the way your cousin laughed with her eyes closed, the red on the horizon that made you pause mid-swing. These thoughts aren't worries. They're echoes, loose ends from the day gently unwinding. You don't cling to them. You let them fade one by one until the only thing left is warmth and weightlessness and breath. There's a rhythm to your nights, not just first sleep and second, but everything between. When to rise and check the fire. When to urinate into the cold pot near the door. When to pull your sister's blanket back over her feet without waking her. You know these motions. You do them with closed eyes. Muscle memory born of habit, of necessity. Future generations will call this mindfulness. But for you, it's just living, being present, because there's no other option, because nothing pulls you from this room, this moment, this breath. You've never once laid in bed fearing missing out. There are no distant parties, no new headlines, no friend you forgot to reply to. The only thing you might miss is the owl that sometimes lands on the beam outside your window. You've named it, even though you'd never say the name aloud, just in your head. You listen for it some nights, and when it doesn't come, you feel no panic, just absence, gentle like the sky without stars. It will return, or it won't. Either way, you'll sleep. And you will sleep tonight. Tomorrow until the days grow too short or the winters too long, until your hands forget how to churn butter or your legs no longer climb the hill. But even then, sleep will find you, because it always has. Long before medicine, long before comfort, long before clocks. It was the one gift the world gave you without cost, and it's the one thing it never took away. There's a kind of intimacy that only sleep can reveal, not lust, not romance, just closeness. When you sleep in the same room, the same pile of warmth, you learn things about people no conversation could ever show. You know the rhythm of their sighs, the strange way someone twitches just before a dream takes hold, the way your sister curls tighter when it rains, the way your mother whispers names into the straw when she thinks no one is listening. Sleep makes you family, not just by blood, but by presence, by breath. You once had a fever, a deep one, the kind that blurs night and day, burns you from the inside, turns your dreams into shapes you can't explain. For 3 nights you slipped in and out of sleep so thick it felt like drowning. And yet, in the middle of it, something held you. Arms, a cool cloth, the sound of someone humming a lullaby that wasn't for you but worked anyway. You don't remember who it was, but you remember the feeling, that even in pain, even in that fire, your sleep made space for survival. Even the animals seem to sleep better here. You've seen them, cows snoring softly in the barn, chickens huddled like stones under straw, the dog twitching in dreams beside the hearth. They aren't rushed. They don't fight their bodies. They don't delay the end of the day out of fear of missing something. They lie down because the sun is gone and their work is done. And in their silence, you are reminded of your own place in the world. Not above, not separate, just one creature among many, returning to stillness. You wonder sometimes if the nobility dream like you do, if their sleep is deep, if their minds quiet, or if they lie awake in high beds surrounded by stone and fire and silence too loud to bear. You don't envy their beds. You don't envy their coin. You have something they'll never name. Rest without debt, sleep that doesn't answer to profit. You lie down poor and wake the same, but between those two things you are weightless, free. There's no shame at needing rest, no lectures, no guilt. If someone falls asleep mid-sentence beside the fire, no one laughs, no one wakes them. It's understood. The body speaks when it must. If your uncle slumps on a bench after supper, someone drapes a cloth over his shoulders. If your cousin lays down early, no one teases him. Sleep is a fact of life, not a failure of will. You've seen noblemen mocked for sleeping in daylight, but here, among dirt and ash and skin, sleep is as holy as bread. And in that freedom, you find strength. Not just for work, not just to survive, but to return every night, every season, through pain, through winter, through hunger and loss and joy. You lie down. You give yourself over to the dark. And when you rise, you do so whole. No ritual, no secret, just a truth as old as breath. No matter how hard the day is, the night still belongs to you. The moon has a rhythm too. You know its shape by heart, not by studying, but by living under it. You've slept beneath a new moon so dark you couldn't see your hand, and under full moons so bright you've mistaken midnight for dawn. Your body responds to both. Under the full moon, you wake more, shift more, the dreams come sharper. Under darkness, your sleep is slower, heavier, like stone. You don't question it. You don't name it. But every peasant in your world sleeps with the moon, not in spite of it. It's another quiet ruler in the sky, and you obey without knowing why. There are nights when the sky itself feels tired. No wind, no stars, just a low, pressing blackness outside the shutters, as if the world has wrapped itself in a blanket. These are the best nights, when even the animals are silent, when no one stirs, when the only sound is the slow stretch of the timber frame and the crackling breath of what remains in the hearth. You lie there, between your cousin and your father, the blanket rising and falling with each breath, and you feel like you've returned to something ancient, something bigger than sleep, something older than language. Sometimes the priest tells you sleep is a vulnerable state, a time when demons can find you. He warns you to pray before lying down, to cross yourself, to name the saints. Not everyone listens, but you do. You whisper the words your grandmother taught you, not loudly, not formally, but as if breathing them into the straw itself. You don't know if it protects you, but you've made it a ritual, and that's enough. Because sleep isn't just for the body. It's a crossing, and when you close your eyes, you want to believe that someone watches over the place you go. There are stories told in the tavern about sleep gone wrong, men who woke screaming, women who refused to close their eyes ever again. They say it was the devil, or a curse, or madness. You don't laugh. You don't dismiss it, because you know what it's like to carry a night that won't leave. You've had dreams that felt too real, dreams you didn't remember until the next time you lay down, and suddenly your chest tightened. But those nights pass, and sleep, no matter how strange, always calls you back, always forgives. And that's what matters most, not the comfort, not the rituals, not the straw, or the silence, or the warmth. It's that sleep returns, no matter how much the day takes, no matter how hard the wind hits your roof, no matter how little food you ate or how heavy your limbs feel. Sleep comes like a tide, like dusk, like mercy, and when it does, you do not resist. You lie down, you give yourself to the dark, and the dark in turn gives you back your strength. You remember sleeping in the fields once during harvest, too far to walk back, too tired to care. You and your brother laid down among sheaves of grain, cloaks over your chests, dew already settling. The stars were cold and endless. You felt small, but not scared. The earth was beneath you, the sky above, and between them your breath fog in the air, slow and steady. You didn't dream that night, just blackness. And when you woke, the sun had barely risen, and your body felt like it had melted into the ground. You carried that sleep with you for days, still do. You've lived through famine. That kind of hunger doesn't let you forget. It doesn't just gnaw at your belly, it hollows out your thoughts, makes the days stretch long and slow, like walking through thick mud. You'd think hunger would steal sleep, that it would keep you awake with pain, but no, it deepens it. It makes sleep heavier, stranger. You lie down not to rest, but to escape. Not because you're tired, but because you need to disappear for a while, and your body mercifully allows it. There are days when you don't eat at all. The bread is gone, the broth is thin. You drink warm water and chew the inside of your lip to keep the ache away. But when night comes, you still lie down. You still cover your feet. You still press your cheek into that same old cloth bundle. And you drift, sometimes faster, sometimes slower, but you drift. The sleep that comes after starvation is different. It's not comfort. It's not peace. It's a kind of surrender, a collapse that feels like floating. It is, in its own way, divine. You don't dream as much when you're hungry. Or maybe you do, but the dreams are less vivid, more distant. Wake with vague shapes in your memory, a hand reaching out, a bowl overflowing, a sky that rains wheat. You tell no one. No one needs more stories of food. But in those dreams, your body gets something it doesn't have in the day. And when you wake, even in weakness, there's a kind of softness in your limbs, like the dream fed you, like your soul ate something your stomach couldn't hold. Not all your neighbors survive the hunger. You've laid beside cousins who never woke. No one speaks of it. No one screams. Death comes quiet in the dark, sometimes gentle and still. The night after, you sleep, not well, not without pain, but you sleep because there's no other choice. You've learned that grief is not loud, it's slow, heavy. It slips into your bones, and still the fire must be kept, the pigs must be fed, and your body, ruined or not, must rest. So you sleep with tears still drying, muscles still sore, heart still cracked. And the next day your sleep doesn't save you. It doesn't change your world, but it gives you the smallest edge, one more inch of strength, one more step across frozen earth. It keeps you from vanishing completely. And even now, when the hunger has passed, and the bread is back, and the stew is thick again, you remember those nights. You remember the way your body gave in, not from defeat, but from trust. Trust that morning would come, that something would return. And every time you lie down now, you carry that history. You remember what it cost to sleep through hunger. You remember that even in suffering, your body still reached for silence, still folded into the dark, still healed just a little. That's the miracle. Not that medieval peasants slept well, but that we slept at all. And we did again and again, Because even if we had nothing, sleep still belonged to us. Not all sleep came easy. There were nights when the fear was too close, when the rumors spread of raiders, soldiers, taxes doubling, the church taking your only cow. You'd lie there, curled in straw, eyes wide open in the dark, listening for footsteps that weren't there. You didn't cry. That was for daylight. At night, you were silent, breath shallow, hands clenched around nothing. But even then, sleep would come, not because you weren't afraid, but because fear eventually wears itself out. It runs in circles until it drops, and when it does, your body takes over. The fear didn't come from ghosts or dreams or shadows on the wall. It came from real things. A knock at the door, a demand from a noble, a fire set to fields you'd spent months tending. You'd seen what fear does when it stays too long, a neighbor who stopped speaking, a mother who forgot how to laugh, a child who grew silent after his father was taken. But even for them, eventually sleep came back. Maybe not as it was, maybe not as deep, but it returned. And in those broken hours, they found something to hold on to. You learned to sleep lightly when needed, one ear open, one leg always close to the edge of the bed, ready to rise. But you also learned how to let go when it was safe to sink fully into the dark. That's a skill not everyone has. You earned it over years, through winters, through childbirths and burnings, and the quiet death of someone you thought would live forever. You earned your rest by surviving, and survival in this world is enough. You once found an old man asleep in a church, bent over a pew, arms folded, mouth open. A priest scolded him for disrespect, but you understood he wasn't praying, he was resting. The church was the only place in the village with warmth, quiet, and no labor expected. His sleep was more sacred than any chant. You sat beside him for a while, said nothing, just listened to him breathe. That moment has never left you. Sometimes you wonder if God prefers prayers or rest. You suspect it's both. As you grow older, sleep changes. Your body wakes more often. The cold reaches deeper. Your dreams come stranger, closer to the surface. Sometimes you talk in your sleep now, or wake remembering someone long gone, but the rhythm remains, the pattern. You know how to lie down even if it takes longer to drift. You know how to calm your limbs, how to find a place for your spine, and even if the sleep is shorter, it's earned. That's all you ask, that it feels like something you worked for, like something you kept. And on the nights when everything aches, when the straw feels sharp and the wind finds its way through the cracks, you don't curse it. You just close your eyes, pull the wool tighter, and think of all the nights before this one, all the times you thought the world would break you, and it didn't. 'Cause here you are, still breathing, still warm, still sleeping beneath the same old roof in the same quiet dark, in a body that refuses to quit. There are superstitions about waking in the wrong hour, the in-between times just after midnight, just before dawn. They say those hours don't fully belong to the living. If you wake then, you're not supposed to speak, not aloud, not even to yourself. You're supposed to wait, to breathe, to let the moment pass without calling attention to it. The church teaches one thing, but the villagers teach another, and in sleep, you listen more closely to the old voices, the whispered rules, the ones carved deeper than scripture. You've obeyed those rules since childhood. If you woke before the hearth crackled, you stayed still. If you needed to rise, you did it slowly. You didn't disturb the silence. That silence, thick, breathy, alive, felt sacred, not peaceful. Sacred, like something ancient moved through the house at night and demanded respect. Even now, as an adult, when you wake in that hour and your eyes catch the faint glow of coals, you remember to move gently. You don't know what waits in that space, but you know how to let it pass without provoking it. Some in the village hang iron by the bed to ward off spirits. Others place bowls of salt near the doorway, not because they expect magic, but because they respect history, the weight of those who didn't wake. You don't question it. You place your small protections in silence. You mutter old prayers passed down by your grandmother's grandmother, not out of fear, but continuity. You're not trying to change the night. You're trying to belong to it, to pass through it one more time unharmed. And you do. Most nights, you wake with your chest warm, your ears ringing from the quiet. Someone is always up before you, usually your mother. You hear her stirring the coals, moving pots, adjusting wood. She doesn't call to you. She lets you rest, because rest in this life is never wasted. If you sleep longer, it's not shameful. It's understood. Your body asked, and in this world, we answer when we can. No one needs to earn rest beyond survival, and you've survived plenty. Sometimes you think about how many have laid in that same bed. Your father, his father, children who never made it past winter. You can feel the generations in the wood beneath you. The straw holds whispers, the walls sigh. You're not alone in your sleep. Not really. You are wrapped in memory, in breath layered on breath. Every body that came before you has taught yours how to rest. And even if no one speaks of it, you know you carry it. In the way your shoulder turns into the curve of the wall, the way your knees fold just so, the way you find the warmth without opening your eyes. And when sleep comes now, slow, thick, wrapping your limbs like a cloak, it brings with it not just rest, but belonging. You are a thread in a larger quilt. You are not separate. You are not suspended in a void. You are laid down like seed into earth, covered in warmth, weighted by time, and sleep, as always does what it was made to do. It holds you without question until the next light rises. There is no such thing as sleeping in total silence. The world hums even in stillness. A dog shifting beside the door, a log collapsing into ember, wind brushing across the thatch roof like a hand over skin. And underneath it all, breath. Yours, theirs, the breath of everyone around you, a shared rhythm in and out, shallow and deep, sometimes overlapping, sometimes staggered, but always there. You don't just sleep near people, you breathe with them. And that makes the sleep deeper, not lonelier, not quieter, but anchored. As you age, your body becomes less predictable. The joints ache longer. Your sleep breaks more often. But your relationship to sleep doesn't weaken. It strengthens. It becomes more tender. You learn how to prepare for it, how to respect it. You take care with your last steps before lying down. You fold your cloak neatly. You stretch your fingers, rub your knees. These aren't rituals of vanity. They're acts of kindness toward the body that has carried you through mud, fire, and winter. You speak to your sleep through motion now, not words. On rare occasions, you sleep alone, when tending a relative's house, when someone else needs your spot in the pile. Those nights are not restful. You feel exposed, unheld. The silence is too thin. You hear every tick of wood, every distant owl. The straw doesn't warm fast enough. You wake more. Your dreams are scattered. It reminds you how much of your rest depends not just on sleep itself, but on togetherness. People think of peasants as having no privacy, But you learned long ago there's a kind of peace that only shared sleep can offer. You remember the first time your child slept through the night. You woke before him, panicked, listened hard to make sure he was breathing, and when you heard that soft, uneven rhythm, you wept, not from fear but from gratitude. His rest was your rest, his safety a balm, and from that night on, you watched his sleep like a fire, carefully, protectively, not just because he was young, but because sleep was sacred and he had found his way into it without struggle. You've never heard of sleep science. You don't know what a circadian rhythm is. You don't track sleep cycles or measure heart rate. But you do know this. When you sleep well, the bread tastes better in the morning, the air feels cleaner, the goat doesn't seem as stubborn, and the hours, though long, don't break you. That's how you know the sleep was good. It shows up in the way your day begins, in the way your body greets the sun, in the way you move through labor without dread. And one day, long from now, when you've grown too old to rise before the others, they'll let you sleep longer. They'll stir the fire without waking you. They'll carry the buckets, knead the dough, hang the wet wool, and you'll open your eyes slowly, body stiff, but heart still full. Because even after everything, the cold, the hunger, the loss, you've kept this, a body that knows how to surrender to the dark and rise from it again, quiet, steady, and whole. There are times when you lie awake, not from worry, but from reverence, when the fire has gone dim and the others are snoring or stirring in sleep, and you find yourself simply listening, not because you can't sleep, but because the night feels full, like it's trying to say something. You don't try to name the feeling. You just lie there, hands on your chest, staring into the dark, and feel the old weight settle, not heaviness, but belonging. The weight of being one more breathing body in a world that keeps turning quietly without needing you to control it. These are the nights when the world feels old, when you realize how many generations have slept like this before. Firewood before straw, before carved beds, people sleeping on dirt next to rivers, under stars. People who didn't write their names down but still dreamed, still sighed, still wrapped themselves in animal skins and let the dark cradle them. You're not separate from them. You're just the next breath, the next chapter. And as you drift off, it feels like falling, not into sleep but into history. Some of the elders say that how you sleep determines how your soul travels, that the position of your limbs, the placement of your head, the things you speak or don't speak before rest, these all shape where your spirit goes. You don't know if that's true, but you've noticed something. The nights when you lie down angry, you wake heavy. The nights when you sleep after, holding someone's hand, you wake light. Maybe that's coincidence, or maybe the soul does travel, and maybe sleep is the only time it can move without chains. There is a rhythm to the entire house. You've lived in it so long you can hear it even when it's quiet. The door shifts in the wind, the rafters click with temperature, the chimney exhales at regular intervals. Your family has become part of that rhythm. The little cough your brother always lets out before falling asleep, the way your mother hums when she adjusts her blanket, the floorboard that creaks no matter who steps on it. It's like a song played every night, and your sleep is the chorus, steady, familiar, ancient. You never outgrow the need for sleep. It doesn't become less important with age. It becomes more sacred. Your dreams grow stranger. Some nights you see people you haven't spoken to in years. Some have died. Others are children again, running through fields they never lived near. You don't wake disturbed. You wake curious. Where do these dreams come from? What part of you still remembers those smells, those voices, those glances from decades ago? Maybe your mind forgets, but sleep doesn't. Sleep keeps the archives, and as your body changes, slower legs, tighter joints, shorter days, your sleep deepens in new ways, not in hours, but in meaning. It feels less like rest and more like return. You no longer take it for granted. You prepare for it with gratitude. You close your eyes not to escape but to arrive, to meet yourself again in the dark, not the worker, not the peasant, just the sleeper, the dreamer, the one who, no matter what the day demanded, still belongs to the night. You've come to understand that the night is not an enemy, not something to resist or conquer. It's not the absence of light, it's the presence of something deeper, softer. The day belongs to obligation, to toil, to others. The night belongs to you. No field can claim your hands while you sleep. No lord can demand your breath. In sleep, you are nameless, untaxed, unburdened. The fire doesn't care what you own. The straw doesn't ask who you serve. You are simply a body again, breathing, resting, remembering how to be whole. Even the pain becomes easier in sleep. The bruises, the burns, the stiff knees from kneeling too long. They don't vanish, but they soften, they loosen. You wake with them, but somehow they feel less sharp, like the edge has worn down. You've heard people say that sleep is where the body heals. You think it's more than that. It's where the body forgives all the things it endured while you worked without pause, the things it held in so you could finish the task. Sleep is how your body tells you it's all right. You made the animals understand it too. You've watched the sheep curl up beneath the stars, unmoving until dawn, the dog sighing into the dirt, paws twitching with dreams, the chickens nestled so close together you can't tell one from the next. They don't need comfort. They don't need darkness. They just need rhythm. And that's what you've learned to follow, the rhythm of the world turning, of hunger rising and fading, of the sun dipping just enough to signal now, let go. You've never counted the hours of sleep you get. You wouldn't know how. Time lives differently here. It's not carved into numbers. It lives in firelight, in the sound of the last pot being scraped, in the rhythm of breathing beside you. There are nights when your eyes open before the others, not because of restlessness, but because something in you knows it's time. No alarm, no schedule, just instinct. And you rise slow, careful not to disturb the balance still held in the room like a glass of still water. Some mornings you wake unsure if you were dreaming or remembering.